right, well, it is late. I feel like I just keep getting later and later with my videos, and it's not because I don't want to do them. It's really because these days this week have just been so stacked with stuff. Um, and right now, our city is really in the throes of, I think, the beginning stages of COVID panic. And maybe it's not panic, but really it's more like planning and anxiety. Um, Really, every several hours, things are developing really rapidly, and decisions are being made by all kinds of city officials, school officials, et cetera, hospitals, nursing homes to modify their behavior, their practices, limit the scope of those practices. Um, Tulane University just announced today that it's going to hold all of the rest of the semester's classes online. That's a lot. It's like 6 weeks worth of classes online. So professors are scrambling to learn how to teach online and to modify their courses online, and students are moving out of their dorms, and they have a week to do so. It is just becoming a really challenging situation, um, and it's only the beginning of it, I suspect, and from what I've read. So, there's just been so many things happening in my work world as a result of all of this, and just because I had a lot of things scheduled today. And so I'm super tired. My brain is really fatigued. My body is fatigued. After this video, I'm going to go to sleep very soon. And so that's where I am as I sit here tonight. The thoughts that have been on my mind today are the things I just talked about, but also specifically as a social work instructor, all day I've been kind of managing and navigating a series of communications with my students, both here in New Orleans and online, who are kind of spread out around the country, but primarily my local students. I've been managing a lot of communications around, should I go to my internship? Because that's my job with the School of Social Work, is to kind of help students along the entire year-long internship process. And I teach a class every other week for that whole year with this small group of students. And a number of my students are doing internships in medical settings, whether it's a large hospital setting or a hospice setting, things like that. And so understandably, my students are really worried. When I did a site visit today at one of our local hospitals, there was only one way to enter and exit, and at that entrance and exit, you had to be screened in order to enter the hospital. And so that's just an example of the kinds of things that are ratcheting up the anxiety of the general population right now. And so I've been kind of talking this through with my students and my colleagues. And I had this really interesting interaction with one of my social work faculty colleagues that just kind of opened my eyes, because I was really I didn't really know where my thoughts were in this direction. Well, should students be allowed to not go to their internships if they don't feel comfortable doing so, or if they're anxious, or should we, really kind of enforce the fact that this is part of their learning process, the good and the bad. And there's actually a section in the Code of Ethics that our profession is sworn to abide by that actually states very clearly that in times of emergency, social workers are absolutely expected to show up unless absolutely unable to do so. And social work is all about social justice, and among many other things, and serving the underserved. So my colleague today, this afternoon, stopped me and said, and we talked about this issue, and she said, we need social workers more than ever right now. It is imperative that our students show up, because who else is going to help identify shortcomings, racism, inequities in the way that people are going to be offered or not offered medical treatment right now during times of crisis, whose needs are going to be met, who's going to speak up for those who don't often have a voice in the very gaping hole oriented safety net that is our medical system. What about the undocumented who are too afraid to go in for care? What about people who are homeless on the streets, who don't have the internal or external resources to get medical care? Who is going to be there for those families in the hospitals? You know, it was so illuminating, and I just wanted to hug her, but of course we kind of elbow bumped because, social distance and all. But I walked away and I was like, thank you to my colleague, because I know what she means is absolutely true. And, I've done enough reading and learning about, for instance, the early years of the HIV/AIDS crisis. My social work career began in HIV/AIDS service provision back in the early 90s, when people were still absolutely in our country dying left and right, and were stigmatized and underserved and derided and denied services. And social workers in that public health crisis were absolutely needed to model how to serve and to address the needs of people whose needs were not being addressed, and whose emotional, psychosocial, and emotional needs were just often completely neglected. Not intentionally, perhaps, but because of the urgency of these situations. In any case, that really, really felt inspiring to me. And I am teaching my class tomorrow here, my on the ground, as we call it, class. And it will be the last time, because of the school's proclamation, it'll be the last time that I teach those students in person until the end of the semester, until the summer starts. And so it's a special class. And I am going to start my class tomorrow with the lights dimmed, and I'm going to lead my class in a soft belly meditation. Because I believe they need it. and then I'm going to read them the section of the Code of Ethics that says that. And I'm really hoping that we can have an open, honest, authentic, and loving discussion about our role. And how do we take care of ourselves? How do we mitigate our own anxiety? How do we care for our own health? But also, how do we step in and stay in during these times of crisis? And so I feel really proud to be a social worker. Not all the time, but right now I do. And so that's what is on my mind. I'm really a little bit anxiously awaiting that class tomorrow, because I suspect I'm going to get a little pushback on some of this. So in any case, that's what's on my mind. And I'm, certainly anxious for my community and all the people in my community. I just recorded a soft belly meditation chat-free video that I am posting right now to my YouTube channel, and it's going to be on the playlist of chat-free meditations. So that is the practice that I am going to do before I go to bed tonight, and that I'm going to teach my students, or lead my students in tomorrow, and which is just widely useful. So that's the mind-body practice I'm sharing, is a separate video with that. And the song that I'm going to add to my playlist tonight is a song that I was reintroduced to tonight, or earlier today actually. Kind of spontaneously, I listened to the Garden State soundtrack, and I hadn't listened to that kind of in its entirety for a long time. I don't know why, but it just hasn't happened, and somehow today it kind of came into my mind, and I thought, I need to listen to this again. And there were a couple of songs in there that kind of took my breath away, because that soundtrack was a part of my life during a time of great change, when I was a newly single mother to my now 18-year-old daughter. And I was rebuilding my life back then, as I am now, but under different circumstances, and trying to kind of find my way as a new 100% single mom, and also, trying to kind of reestablish myself out in the world as a social creature. Anyway, so I have a lot of associations with this particular album, and there are a couple of songs on there that are really, really meaningful to me, but one is a song called Winding Road by Bonnie Somerville. And Bonnie Somerville is, I think, an actress who recorded an album, as they do sometimes. But this one particular song, I don't know who wrote it, and I would like to find that out. It's just a lovely song about trying to find our way and trying to kind of start over and visualize for ourselves what we want. And right now, our community is in the midst of a crisis, and this song feels comforting to me. So I'm going to post it, and then I'm going to go to bed.